Christmas of 2019 was the year three friends decided to disappear. They were all in their early 20s, exhausted in the specific way only people fresh out of school and already burned out by adulthood can be. Mark worked double shifts at a distribution warehouse. Tyler had just moved cities for a job he hated. And then there was Evan, the one who suggested the cabin in the first place. None of them wanted another holiday full of forced smiles, old arguments, and relatives asking questions they didn't know how to answer. So instead of going home, they pooled their money and rented a small cabin about an hour outside the city. It was tucked near the edge of a quiet neighborhood, but backed directly into thick woods that swallowed the light once the sun went down. The listing photos made it look cozy: wood paneling, a stone fireplace, string lights on the porch. Nothing about it felt threatening. If anything, it felt like the kind of place people escape to in order to feel safe. They arrived just before sunset on Christmas Eve. The driveway was long and narrow, winding between tall trees that leaned inward like they were listening. Mark joked about it being the start of a horror movie, and Tyler laughed, already carrying a case of beer under one arm. Evan unlocked the door and flicked on the lights. The cabin smelled like old pine and dust, but it was warm, quiet, the kind of quiet that felt earned. That first night went exactly how they hoped it would. They cooked frozen pizza, drank too much, played card games at the small wooden table, and laughed louder than necessary. Music played softly from a speaker. Outside, snow drifted down in thin sheets, catching the porch light. At some point, Tyler stepped outside to smoke and came back shivering, saying the woods felt off. Mark told him to stop watching creepy videos. Evan locked the front door before bed, turning the deadbolts until it clicked. They split into two bedrooms, with Evan taking the smaller room near the back hallway. Mark and Tyler shared the larger room closer to the living area. The cabin settled as the fire died down, wood popping softly. Nothing happened for hours. Sometime deep in the night, Evan woke up. At first, he didn't know why. His eyes opened to darkness, his body heavy with sleep and alcohol. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the heater. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to fall back asleep. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not loud, not rushed, just the slow, careful sound of someone walking across hardwood floors. Evan's first thought was that it was one of the others getting water or using the bathroom. He checked his phone. A little after 3 a.m., he rolled onto his side, listening. The footsteps moved through the living room. They stopped. A few seconds passed. Then they continued, quieter now, like whoever it was trying not to be heard. Evan felt a flicker of unease, but he told himself he was half asleep, that cabins made noise, that his brain was filling in gaps. He didn't get up, he didn't call out. Eventually, the sound faded, and he drifted back to sleep. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows, making everything feel normal again. Mark was already up, frying eggs in a pan. Tyler sat at the table, scrolling on his phone, nursing a headache. Evan mentioned the footsteps casually, like it was nothing. "Either of you up around 3?" he asked. Mark shook his head. "I didn't move all night." Tyler frowned. "Same. I thought I heard something too, but I figured it was the wind." That should have been the end of it. But when Mark went to step out onto the porch, he froze. The doors unlocked. Evan felt his stomach drop. He remembered locking it. He was sure of it. They checked the deadbolt. It wasn't broken. No sign of forced entry, no footprints on the porch, though fresh snow had fallen overnight. Tyler laughed it off, a little too loudly. Maybe one of us forgot. None of us argued, but no one really believed that. They spent the day trying to ignore it. They went into town, grabbed food, joked around like normal, but the mood had shifted. Every so often, one of them would glance toward the tree line behind the cabin. Night came faster the second time. The wind picked up after sunset, rattling the windows. The woods outside looked denser somehow, the darkness between the trees deeper than it should have been. They drank again, but not as much. The laughter didn't last as long. Before bed, Evan checked every window. Mark locked the door, then checked it again. Tyler made a joke about barricading it with a chair, then didn't laugh when no one responded. They turned off the lights and went to bed earlier than the night before. Sleep didn't come easily. Around the same time as before, Evan woke up. This time, there was no confusion about why. Footsteps were moving through the cabin again, clearer now, heavier. The floor creaked under each step, the sound deliberate and unhurried. This wasn't someone pacing or stumbling. This was someone walking like they knew exactly where they were going. Evan's heart started to race. He sat up slowly, listening. The footsteps moved past the living room, then into the hallway, closer. Evan held his breath as the sound stopped just outside his door. For a moment, there was nothing. No movement, no sound at all. Then something shifted, just barely, and Evan realized the door to the hallway was open. He could see a thin line of darkness stretching across the floor. He didn't want to look, but he did. Standing in the hallway was a man. He was massive, tall and broad, filling the narrow space like he didn't quite belong indoors. He wore dark clothes that blended into the shadows, his face barely visible in the low light. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, facing one of the other bedroom doors, watching. Evan couldn't scream. His body locked up, his mouth dry. His mind raced through explanations that made no sense. Sleepwalking, a prank, a nightmare. The man shifted. Slowly, he turned his head toward Evan's room. What little light there was caught his face. His eyes were open wide, empty in a way that didn't look human. There was no curiosity in them, no anger, no expression at all, just a flat, hollow stare. He took a step forward. The floor creaked, then another. The man reached Evan's door and pushed it open. Evan tried to move. He couldn't. The man stood in the doorway, towering over him. He didn't speak. He didn't react. He just stared, his chest rising and falling slowly, like he'd been there many times before. Seconds stretched impossibly long. Then Tyler screamed. The sound shattered the silence, raw and terrified. The man moved instantly, turning away from Evan and charging down the hallway. Mark burst from his room just in time to see the intruder slam into Tyler, sending him crashing into the wall. Mark lunged forward, yelling, but the man shoved past him with terrifying strength and bolted for the front door. The door flew open, cold air rushed in. Then he was gone, vanishing into the woods without a sound. They didn't chase him. They locked themselves in one room and called the police, hands shaking, voices breaking as they tried to explain what had happened. The police arrived nearly an hour later. They searched the cabin, the woods, the surrounding area. They found nothing. No footprints, no damage, no explanation. Tyler had a bruised shoulder and a concussion. Mark couldn't stop pacing. Evan sat silently, staring at the floor. The officers suggested it might have been someone from the neighborhood, maybe a drunk, maybe someone looking for an unlocked place to sleep, but none of that explained how quiet he was, or how long he'd been there. They left the cabin before sunrise and never went back. Weeks later, Evan admitted something he hadn't told them that night. When he'd been lying awake, frozen in bed, staring at the man in the doorway, he realized something far worse than the fact that a stranger had broken in. The man's clothes were dry, despite the snow, despite the long walk through the woods, which meant he hadn't just arrived. It meant that for hours, maybe longer, a silent stranger had been standing inside that locked cabin, watching them sleep.